I'm going to try and tell you this story as clearly as I can. I haven't spoken about it to anyone in years, but I think it's time someone knows. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I swear this really happened. It was about 6 years ago. I had just moved into a small old house on the outskirts of town. It was a great deal, and the place was charming. At least I thought so at first. It had the classic things you look for in an old house: creaky wooden floors, a fireplace that I never used, and an attic that was a little too dusty for comfort. I was single at the time, living alone, and figured I could finally make this place my home. But almost immediately, things started feeling off. It started small. I'd hear footsteps above me when I was downstairs in the kitchen or the living room. At first, I chalked it up to the house settling. After all, it was an old place. But then the footsteps got louder, and there was something else, something I couldn't quite describe. It wasn't just walking, it sounded like scratching, like nails dragging along the floorboards, slowly, almost methodically. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks. But after a few weeks, I started to get the feeling that I wasn't alone. I'd feel eyes on me, like someone was standing just behind me when I was washing dishes or sitting on the couch. Every time I'd turn around, though, nothing would be there. One night, I decided to check the attic. It was a pretty standard attic with old boxes of junk, an old lamp that flickered if you looked at it too long, and insulation that made the air feel thick. But it was clear no one had been up there in a long time. The trap door had a padlock on it, so there was no way anyone could have been living up there without me knowing. I thought that would be the end of it. But after that night, the feeling of being watched only intensified. Then came the night I'll never forget. It was a Sunday. I was sitting on the couch flipping through TV channels when I heard the sound again. The unmistakable sound of someone walking in the attic. At first I froze. I figured it was just my mind playing tricks, but this time, something was different. It wasn't a casual footstep. It was deliberate, heavy, like someone was pacing back and forth. I had to know what was going on, so I grabbed a flashlight and made my way upstairs. I walked slowly, trying not to make a sound. The stairs creaked beneath my feet, and the closer I got to the trap door, the heavier the air seemed to get. I stood there for a minute listening. It was quiet now. No sounds from the attic. Maybe it was just the house. Maybe the noises really were just creaks and groans. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something, a shadow just at the edge of the trap door. I blinked and it was gone. I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and I unlocked the padlock. When I opened the door, I was hit with the musty smell of old wood and dust. The attic was pitch black, save for the beam of light from my flashlight. My heart raced as I stepped inside, the floor creaking under my weight. I scanned the room, my flashlight sweeping over piles of old furniture and boxes. But then my light landed on something in the far corner. At first I thought it was just another shadow, but then I saw it move. It was a man. He was sitting against the wall, curled up into a ball, his knees pulled up to his chest. He was just sitting there, not moving, not making a sound, but he was clearly there. My blood went cold. I was frozen, staring at him. I thought I must be seeing things. Maybe someone broke in. But as I stared, I realized something even worse. His eyes, they were wide open, but they weren't looking at me. They were staring directly at the beam of light from my flashlight. His expression was one of complete emptiness, like he wasn't aware of anything around him. I don't remember how long I stood there, but eventually I snapped out of it and bolted down the stairs. I didn't even bother turning off the light or locking the trap door. I ran to my car and drove straight to my friend's house, and I didn't go back to that house for weeks. When I finally worked up the courage to go back, I called a locksmith to change the locks. I had the attic sealed shut, and I never spoke of it to anyone. No one believes me when I tell them the story, and I don't know what happened to that man, but I'll never forget those eyes. The worst part, a year after I moved out, I drove past the house and noticed something strange. The attic trap door was wide open, and the last time I checked, I know for a fact I had locked it.
It happened last year, during one of those quiet, rainy nights. I was home alone, just winding down after a long day. My phone was charging in the kitchen, and I was on the couch, flipping through TV channels, when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong, a knock. It came from the back door. I froze. I live in a pretty isolated part of town. No one comes around this late, and the weather was bad. Too bad for anyone to be out there. I thought maybe it was the wind, so I tried to shake it off. Then, another knock. This time it was louder, insistent. I grabbed my phone, dialed my best friend, hoping it was some kind of prank. But when I tried to call, the line was dead. I tried again. Still nothing. Weird, but I wasn't about to go to the door to check. Then, the knock came again. But this time it wasn't from the back door. It was from the front door. My heart started racing. I wasn't sure who would be out there, but I sure as hell wasn't going to open it. Instead, I pulled the curtains just enough to peek out. I could barely make out the silhouette of a figure standing there. Tall, dark, unmoving. I tried to stay calm. I called 911, but the call wouldn't go through. My mind raced, trying to figure out who would do something like this. My parents were out of town, and I hadn't heard from anyone else. The knocking continued, now rhythmic, like they knew I was inside. I backed away from the window, grabbed a kitchen knife, and thought about what to do next. Maybe I could make a run for it, but when I turned to the door, something caught my eye. The light on the porch flickered. I walked to the window again, but this time I didn't see the figure. There was no one. I checked the front yard. Nothing. I exhaled in relief. It was just my mind playing tricks on me. I was about to sit down again when I heard something that made my blood run cold. A phone ringing. I didn't recognize the number, but then it hit me. My phone had been dead, right? I grabbed the phone from the kitchen counter and saw it. My phone was still charging. The ringing wasn't coming from my phone. It was coming from inside the house. I followed the sound, dread crawling up my spine, until I reached the hallway. The sound was coming from behind the door to the basement. I opened it, slowly, heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it, the phone on the basement floor, still ringing. I picked it up, my hands shaking. "Hello?" I whispered. A voice on the other end, quiet but clear. "I'm still here." My blood froze.